Hello everyone, welcome to the first tutorial on the Code Wikis YouTube channel. This tutorial is going to be about Git and GitHub. Now firstly, what is Git? Let's go on to the Git website to have a look about what it says about Git. This is the Git website where you find all information regarding Git. So once you open that, you come to know that Git is a free and open source distributed version control system designed to handle everything from small to very large projects with speed and efficiency. Now, what is a version control system and why do you need that? A version control system is nothing but a software, a tool that is designed to maintain the version history of any files that you are changing. For example, if you are working on a document or writing a book, or if you are working on a programming project or on a website or app development, and you are changing a lot of files frequently on your local system, then you would want some kind of a tool to monitor the files for changes and maintain the previous versions. If any of you have used track changes on Microsoft Word, for example, you would know what version control looks like. So at any point of time, if you want to go back to a previous version because you made mistakes during some changes and you have a defect in your program or you have written something in your documents that you want to undo, you can go back to a previous version by using Git because it maintains all the version history for all the different files that you are changing in that folder. Now, what is GitHub? GitHub is nothing but an online repository that is managed using Git. So if you want to collaborate with others who are also changing the same files for the same project, then you need to upload your files from your local system to an online repository. GitHub provides you that platform. So you can upload your entire project with all the code or documents inside into GitHub by creating a repository. And then GitHub also uses Git for version control. And there are different commands to push changes from your local system to GitHub or to retrieve changes done by others from GitHub to your local system. And because you are using Git, so you can manage all these changes in the files efficiently between multiple people without overwriting each other's changes. So that is the main value addition behind Git. Now let us move on. We are going to have a look at how we can download and install Git on our system. So you have to go into this downloads link, and then based on which operating system you are using, you can click on one of these links to download Git for your platform. Since I use Windows, normally I would click on Windows, and that would take me to this page where I can choose if I want to download the software for the 32-bit system or the 64-bit system. And by default, I get the 64-bit one since I have a 64-bit system. Now I'm not going to install it again because I already have Git installed. But once you run this file and you have Git installed, now you can check from your command prompt or your shell or any other terminal that you have whether Git is correctly installed or not. So you can do something like this to check if Git has been installed correctly. It shows you the Git version that you have on your system. So now that we have Git installed successfully, let's go into the documentation on this website and see what it has to offer. Now you can find various links under documentation. You have a reference manual, you have a book, and you have some videos as well. So you can use this to learn advanced techniques in Git. We are going to use this book and we are going to uh, follow the different methods given in the book to get started with Git. And then you can use this book as a reference material. I suggest that all of you download the book in one of these formats if you want to become advanced in Git. So I'm going to download the PDF version. So in this book, you have the first three chapters that you should go through to get started with Git for your project. But anyway, I'm going to give you a background on Git that will help you get started immediately. So Git is basically a distributed version control system. What does that mean? There are different ways in which version control can be done. Probably the most simplest way would be to create a folder on your system for every new version of your project. But under distributed version control, you have a copy of the files on your server that is hosting your website or your app, and all the different versions of that app or site is also maintained on the server. But a copy of the same is also maintained with each collaborator who is working on this project. And in every local system, also we have the history of all the versions. So this is a perfect example of a distributed version control system. If there is a defect introduced on the last version in the server, firstly, you can switch back to one of the older versions and restore all the source from an older version. And even if all the files on the server get accidentally deleted, or if the server crashes and it's difficult to bring it back up with the last version running, you can also restore the files on the server from any of these local systems. And you can restore the files from any of the previous versions of the local system. The next thing that we need to know is about the three states that are managed by Git. And this is going to be important going forward for the rest of the tutorial. The three states in Git are modified, staged, and committed. But what do these stages or states mean? Say you have a working directory where you have all the files of the project. When you modify any of the files, it is in the state modified. After this, you need to run a command called git add to add them to the staging area. Don't worry about the command right now because we'll look into that in more details. Just remember that you need to run a command to move any modified files to the Git staging area. Once the files are in the Git staging area, they are in the state staged. After that, you have to run a command called git commit to move any files in the staging area to a new version in the repository. Unless the files were previously added to the staging area, they will not be moved to the repository. What does that mean? So say you modify a file modified.txt in your working directory, but you don't add that to the staging area. Now when you run git commit, only the files in the staging area will be picked up to be added to the Git repository. Any files that are in the working directory and that have not yet been added to the staging area will not be added to the Git repository. Okay, so now that we know how Git works and we have Git installed on our system, let's quickly complete the setup that remains for Git.